Good morning, FGC, man. The Cannon Brothers, they talk with Evo Japan about Project L. Coming up next. What up, man? It's Red K, and Project L, probably the most anticipated with not that much information of any game that's out right now. We thought it would be out maybe like 2024, but that's not even looking like it might be. But the Cannon Brothers, who are heading the project, the guys who kind of invented Evo, it's only right that they will be out at Evo Japan and talking about Project L. So let's get into that. I've been waiting to do this video for like 2 days. I know I'm a little bit late, but I'll be watching it for the first time with you guys. It's a supercut. So they're doing a translation between like Japanese and like, I think they're in Japan. Yeah, because Evo Japan. So they're doing like a Japanese interpretation, and then they're doing like American, and they're like talking back and forth. So it's kind of like a supercut, so we don't have to watch the entire thing.
So many people know that you two are the founders of Evolution Evo, and now executive producer and technical lead of
They're not
Project
twins,
L,
right?
but not many
They just
people
look alike.
probably know about your background and how you were brought up. So today we like to know about your
That's
roots,
important to
your background, how you became to enter the game industry, and how you became to enter the fighting games. So could you
Americans
please tell
don't
us
care about that. We
your
just want you to give
background
us
in
the game.
general?
Yeah, absolutely. First, thank you for having us. We're both very excited to be here in Japan. I have been playing and been around fighting games for my entire adult life.
Me too.
I remember I first played Street Fighter II back in 1991, and I was just amazed by like the graphics and the
Attention
idea
to
of
detail.
playing a game as competition. So I played Street Fighter as a, esports wasn't a thing back then, but I played
Yeah.
competitively, going to tournaments in Chicago and New York. I tried to make it out to Japan for some of the tournaments here, but I wasn't good enough, but I tried.
Yeah.
And so after having played a lot and really enjoying tournaments, Tony and I, that's when we decided we would try to make our own tournament. And that's where Evo comes
See,
from.
I knew I liked these guys. I'm not good enough to compete, not professionally. So I started having tournaments too. I get it. I get where you're coming from.
And so we started Evo in 2002, and it was a small tournament then. We had, I think, 64 players the first time. And we've just stayed at it year after year after year, and it's grown to what it is today. Around 2012, we decided that the next step for trying to make fighting games better and contribute to the
Is to
fighting
make
game
a
community
game.
was to try to make our own fighting game. Now, we had never made a game before, and so that was very challenging. We started making our first fighting game for PC, which was called Rising Thunder, and that was made very quickly with a small team in about 18
Rising
months.
Thunder, I think it's still online. You can still get it now. I mean, there's no updates to the game, but you can still play Rising Thunder, and you'll see a lot of the DNA of Rising Thunder and what Project L looks like in like the newer trailers. It's really interesting to see like how they no pun intended, evolved their game.
And from that game, we started talking to Riot Games. We learned a lot about making games, and we thought that if we teamed up with Riot, we could try again and make something that could really be something that we hope is special. And so several years later, right, now we're working on Project L.
ありがとうございます。
So 2012 to 2023 would be about 13 years to make this game if you think about everything. Not all of it for Project L, but I mean the entirety of their game development of everything they've learned is coming into Project L. It's probably like 13, 15 years, something like that.
そしてじゃあ聞きましょうか。さらに。
Oh, unsurprisingly, our backgrounds are very similar. We
Ah!
both played in arcades in the 90s.
ちょっと今冗談なんですけれども、
I would love it if you
驚く
just said
ほど
like the same thing.
背景、バックグラウンドが似てるねっていうような、双子なんでね、当然なので、今ちょっとしたジョークを挟んでくださいました。Go ahead.
We after college, we both went into the tech industry,
and that gave us the
know
opportunity
that.
to play
Makes
both
sense,
in
though.
California, in Chicago, as Tom mentioned, in the Pacific Northwest. And what we found is that the passion for fighting games was the same everywhere we went. And
See, that is the
and
thing that's got every. I think more than just Riot being behind it, League of Legends, like a big name being behind it, of course, the money that's going to be behind the tournament scene. I think more so that just we can feel the passion for the fighting game genre with these two. They encapsulate a lot of like what we like about people that have been in the FGC or just around fighting games for a very, very long time. Like you could just feel like when they talk about it, it's like, yes, that's the thing that makes you want to keep playing, right?
2000, I had the opportunity to come to Japan to play the players here in an exhibition between US players and Japanese players. And this is before the internet really took off, and so
which
it
one's
was a
Tony?
complete unknown to us as to whether US players or Japanese players were better. And we were just blown away figuratively and literally at how great the players were here. And that's what really inspired
Blown away.
us.
They beat the hell out of
We had
them.
already
They beat
started
the
to make
shit out of
Evo a large national tournament, but to make it international and really invite players from all over the world to come. And a contingent
got
of
the
Japanese
shit
players
beat out of
came
them.
in the early 2000s. People like Tokido and MOV and eventually Daigo, and it really helped
The gods of
breed
fighting
sort of this
games.
international
But
celebration
the
of fighting games.
five gods of Japan.
Very funny question. So, because it's a fighting game, have you ever battled against each other? And the question is, which is stronger? Who is stronger?
Which is
I want
stronger?
Tony to answer this question.
Yeah, thank
Okay,
you.
so
I
we know who Tony
appreciate
is,
it.
okay.
Actually, the
I think
first
Tony's the older
tournament
brother.
we ever played in was in 1991 in New Mexico. And we met each other in the finals.
Wow.
Yeah. And
Wow.
Tom won that
Okay.
tournament. He was playing Dalsim, and I was playing Guile in the original Street Fighter 2.
The classic.
And that has
the
been
classic.
the case
Hey,
for the rest
look,
of our
hey, look,
competitive
hey, yo,
career. Tom has
hey,
always been,
hey, look
a
at
little bit
Tom. Look at Tom. Tom's like, yep. I don't want to say that I'm the better one, but I'm gonna let him say it. Like that smug look on his face. Yo, there's people that I've beat 13 years ago in the game, and I'm still savoring the win, the W. The sibling rivalry. I love it.
So you mentioned how that you had that experience in the 1991 tournament and also the 2000 tournament, the Capcom US versus Japan. Actually, he was there to see it, and so I'm sure a lot of tournaments inspired you to making Evo. But could you be more specific? Do you have any specific tournament or games that you had in mind when you were trying to make Evo, or what? Do you have a specific person that inspired you? Could you be more specific about what kind of gave you ideas for Evo?
One of the very first Evos we did, I think it was Evo 2004. I hope I get this right. Third Strike, Street Fighter 3 Third Strike, where the U.S. players were very excited about that game, very passionate about that game, and we had a 5-on-5 competition between the United States players, the very best in the U.S., and some
Moment 39,
players
moment
in Japan
34,
who decided
39,
to
I
come.
think it is.
Tokido was one of them. It did not go well for the United States. We got destroyed. And so when we saw how far we could come to get better, and we saw like the very, very best play, the international competition and how exciting that was the inspiration for us to like try to make Evo as big as it could. And then, of course, at the same event, we had the famous Evo Moment 37, right?
37.
And
Moment
it's hard
37.
to underestimate. Like, before the internet, we didn't know that the parrying the entire super was possible. And so to see something that you didn't even think was possible, it expanded
37.
what we thought was possible in the game. And that, I think that's the number one inspiration.
Did you want to add on to anything?
Oh, yeah. I think even before Evo, we were running tournaments in the late 90s. And we did it because there was such passion behind the game of players who wanted to come together and see who was the best, right? And really just play together. Fighting games are very competitive.
Yes.
But they're games that create friendships and
Exactly.
lifelong friendships. And we wanted to create
I'm a
an
firm
event.
believer after you fight somebody, like this is a male thing, and this is like something that for kids, and I'm not talking about like somebody that hurt your sister, but like I remember vividly back in the day. I'm a old head. I used to get in fight with people, and then we'd have to see those guys the next day, and we'd be like, after you don't fought somebody, it's like we family now. You know what I'm saying? We might fight every day, but after we fight, it's we shake hands, alliances, and I think a lot of that, the spirit of that is in fighting games. There's a lot of people in the Daytona FGC that don't particularly like each other, but are friends in a fighting game kind of way. You know what I'm saying? It's like being on the football team with people you usually wouldn't be friends with, but you have a kinship in the shared thing that we do, and I think that's really cool.
Where anybody who loved the game could come and play and come and compete. That's been very important to us, which is why we still use an open format. So if you come and you're new to the game and you might get in a pool with Daigo, yeah, you can play Daigo and you have a chance. You probably won't win, but it rewards your investment in the game and you're part of the community, whether you're the best player in the world or someone who's new to fighting games. That's
Moving on to the next topic, we'd like to discuss GGPO. You being involved in fighting games, this GGPO is something that we cannot miss out on in the conversation. And it was became open sourced in 2019, and now other manufacturers are making their own rollback netcodes by their unique ways. So to begin with,
notice he said in unique ways, meaning i.e. Capcom and Namco. Why didn't you just hire the brothers before they got picked up by Project L? Because despite what Guilty Gear Strive is going through right now, a lot of times when these companies try to do their own GGPO, it's cheeks. It's straight cheeks.
Start developing these netcodes. How did it come to be?
It was wow.
That's a good question.
When the original Xbox came out, Capcom released Hyper Fighter, which was a game that I played in arcades, but I was very busy with work and I didn't have time to go to arcades anymore, so I tried playing it online, and it used an input delay system, which
it's cheeks.
Doesn't feel good to a player. I was disappointed. And so in my spare time, I started looking at ways to improve netcode. And it really boiled down to, I have a computer science degree, I work in a tech company, I understand networking, but I'm also a player, so I understand what feels good and what's necessary to make it feel good. And then just through experimenting with different techniques, I came up with rollback. And then some friends and I got together and just tried it. First we played, within California, and then we played California to Virginia, and then we played California to Australia, and it held up.
Nice.
And that's when we knew we had something, right? That was a pretty exciting moment.
So we spoke about EVO and we spoke about GGPO. So in that sense,
this is stuff that I didn't know. This is
both
a
of
great
you
interview,
has
actually.
contributed to fighting games, both through event and through software, and succeeded. And so what do you think about the success that you have achieved through these two media?
It's a little bit humbling. This is beyond what we dreamed of for EVO. And Tony made GGPO not to try to make $1 million, but to try to make
just
fighting
to play
games better, which is why he open sourced it.
For him to
And
play.
to see that kind of technology being adopted by so many fighting games, it's what we hope for.
Yo,
We
this
are
this is super inspirational for me personally. Being someone who is invested in fighting games community for a while and having my own tournaments and had failures at tournaments and everything. Like these guys, Tony and Tom invented GGPO, and then they open source. You know how much they could have sold the proprietary. Just think, right? If say they sold GGPO to Capcom, and Capcom was the only game that had the rights to roll back netcode, being the only game that had a good netcode. Do you know what kind of market share that would have? And they were like, no, we don't want that to happen. We'll just let every company get it, and then have at it. That way, every game can have good netcode, and not only just fighting games are picking up. Like, you know, like shooters are picking up. Any game that's online, which is every game, and they're just like, yeah, it's open source. That is wow.
Always driven by like what's next, like what's the next thing we can do to try to make fighting games better.
That everybody here is waiting for, Project L. So we obviously understand that your experience in the fighting games in the past has helped you in developing Project L. Could you be more specific how your experience from the past helped you in developing this new project?
I think Tony's story about GGPO is a good example.
Yeah.
Because we are players and because we have been involved with building experiences for fighting game players for so long, we have a lot of practice in understanding hopefully what will make players happy. And so like at Evo Japan and all Evos, we have this top 8 format, right? Which we think is an exciting way to conclude a tournament. And so based on all the things that we've learned through all of these, we can take those learnings and try to put them into software, into a video game, which is different. But for instance, when we're thinking about our rank system, we're thinking about what does it feel like to go through like pools and then to have that celebration of like, I made it out of pools, but now can I make it to the finals? And then can I win? And we understand the emotional journey that the player goes on, and we can try to come up with ideas in the game that give you hopefully the same feeling.
What you just said really comes to the fact that you're trying to make this free to play, and for the
Free to
you're
play
thinking about
confirmed.
the players and for the business industry itself. But I think he's saying that he thinks that the only titles, well, most titles have not succeeded in making their games actually free to play. So could you tell us about why you want to make it free to play, and also how you're trying to monetize this Project L?
Yeah, one of the things we're trying to do with Project L is let more players find the magic of fighting games.
I agree.
And right now there are many barriers. One of the things that can help there is making it free to play, where they can experience the breadth of fighting games. One of the things that we're very serious about is making sure that they get a genuine experience, and so we will never try to sell power, right? So they should be able to have a full-strength character or explore the roster without having to pay. And that will lead to more engagement, and then when they spend money because they love the game, they'll feel good about it. They'll feel good about
Cosmetics
it
and
before
things
the
like
purchase
that,
and then
yeah.
after the purchase.
Yeah.
As far as models, like Riot has other titles in the free-to-play space, like League of Legends and Valorant.
That do
that
very
are
well.
very successful. So we're going to borrow
Very
ideas
successful.
from those games and make sure that they make sense in the fighting game genre. For example, both of those games will sell cosmetics as opposed to power. So maybe that's an approach we'll take.
You in the first half of the interview, you said that you were involved in developing Rising Thunder, and this development experience of Rising Thunder probably gave you ideas for doing Project L.
They
and
are
for
very
example,
similar.
the cooldown system, which probably was from League of Legends. This game was one of the first games to introduce cooldown system. So like that, could you tell us about how your experience with developing Rising Thunder is helping you in developing Project L?
Well, everybody's having a cooldown system now. I mean, I would say that if Rising Thunder did have a cooldown system, now MK11 cooldown system, Street Fighter 6 has a cooldown system with your what is it called? Rush Drive or whatever. So yeah.
So let me talk about our approach to fighting games and just our approach to everything we do. There are so many great fighting games being made today, and we
Yeah.
can see many of them here and even the upcoming ones. They're so impressive. If we're going to do something, we feel like we need to try something new. Like we will experiment to see if we can like find new things that can make fighting games better. Like with Evo, the open bracket format was an experiment, and it worked out. Cooldowns in Rising Thunder was one of those experiments, but it didn't work out. We weren't really happy with that, and we think taking options away from the player, like you hit a button and then you can't hit that button again for 5 seconds or something. That was not a good idea. But there was a reason why we thought that was interesting. It was to try to balance simplified inputs. Okay, and so we've taken those learnings and we're applying those to Project L. And so we think with Project L, and this is like, we've even learned more developing Project L.
Yeah.
And when we finally get this game to players, you will teach us so much more about this game immediately, right? And so the way that we think about this project and all of our projects is, can we constantly be learning and making things better, and try new things, not be afraid to try new things. But if they don't work out, listen to players and change.
In relevance to what you just said, League of Legends, they has been doing updates every 2 weeks. And for fighting games, those updates, a lot of updates are not so favored among the players, to my understanding. So Project L, how are you going to keep the balance? How are you going to make adjustments? What are your thoughts right now?
We take inspiration from League of Legends, but for everything we do, we will do what's right for a fighting game. And so what we like about League is we think constantly keeping the game updated makes sure that the game doesn't stay in a bad state for too long. But part of the fun of fighting games is seeing an overpowered technique, and then the players try to figure it out. And maybe they can counter it, right?
Yeah.
And then can you have a counter for the counter? And if you patch the game too quickly, that's not possible.
Yeah.
So we're going to, we won't patch every 2 weeks. It's pretty safe to say that.
Yeah.
We're going to find the right time between patches that works really well for a fighting game. And this is an area where once we are live one day, we're really going to listen to players. And if you tell us we're patching too quickly or too slowly, we'll try something else until we get it right.
Project L,
This
5
game's
champions,
never coming out.
Jinx, Ahri, Echo, Darius, and Eloy are announced. And in the prototype, Catalina was also there. And so when you decide on the champions, what elements do you place emphasis on? What elements do you think are important when bringing in champions to the games?
I think one of our strengths
There's something like
on Project
100
L
to 200
is how
champions.
many different kinds of people we have that are passionate about the game. We have old fighting game players. We have new fighting game players.
We'll
we
be
have
there.
people who are new to fighting games. And we have people who maybe come
League
from
players.
the League side, the League IP, right? And so when we're building a new champion, there are obviously fighting game concerns you want to consider. Like, what is their archetype? Is this a grappler or a zoner, right? What is their style? Like, how can a player express themselves differently within that genre, right? We're also
And there's
trying
Arcane,
to
the
look
TV show,
at
so you know
the
they're gonna be on
source
there, right?
material, the League IP, and really try to elevate it and say, for a character like Darius, what does Darius represent in League? And what's the best expression of that in a fighting game, right? They're very different games. League is very helicopter view, top down, and fighting game is much, much closer inside view. And so how
your
do you make
face.
sure that that power fantasy, that essence of the champion is true to a fighting game, but also true to the League IP? And I think one of our strengths as a team is we have so many different perspectives on how to accomplish all of those things. And we'll iterate on a champion continuously until we feel really great about it.
The interview, we kind of didn't learn anything about League besides the fact that it's confirmed that it's going to be a free-to-play game. But that was a really interesting interview with just the Cannon brothers in general. When's it coming out? When's the beta? Any more details? We know that it's a game. We know it's in development. We don't know much else. Still hype. But you know, Street Fighter's coming out. Tekken's coming out. A lot of games. Dragon Ball Fighters is getting netcode. Sometime in the future, Guilty Gear will get its netcode fixed. I mean, there's a lot to look forward to. I do want to play Project L because I'm a big fan of the Power Rangers game, and I think it's very similar. And I think that game has a lot of potential, but didn't have a lot of money back in behind it. So, yeah, man. If you like the video, you know, go ahead and leave a comment. I'll try to get to you in the comment section, man. And you know, I think the next video I'm going to do on League is I'm going to see what do League players think of Project L. That'll be interesting. All right, so next time, it's Ray K, Wally Mob Gaming. Good morning, FGC. I'm out. Peace.